And yeah, thank you. This has been absolutely immense. It's a very inspirational event full of real business case studies, which is always good. So yes, thank you, Alan, and thank you, Cognigy, for putting this on. My name's Ken Sims. I introduced myself on the panel earlier on if you were here for that. I run VUX World, which is a consultancy and a media organization that helps brands and individuals create and deploy effective customer experiences using AI. And for the past kind of 6 years or so, it was the 6th year anniversary of the VUX World podcast last week or something like that, which little milestone there. And so for that duration of time, I've been speaking to business leaders, practitioners, and anyone and everyone who's involved in this space, from large enterprises to startups, and trying to figure out what are the best practice and patterns around creating and deploying this stuff successfully. And so in this talk is some of those lessons learned from those conversations and some of the lessons learned through doing this as a practitioner myself over the last 6 years as well. And it's based on the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Has anyone read that book by Marshall Goldsmith? Any show of hands? What Got You Here Won't Get You There? No? All right, fair enough. So the premise of that book is that it's kind of like a career development book, and in there it says that everything that you've been doing up to this point in your life and career and the skills that you've got are not the same skills that are going to take you to that next level, wherever it is that you want to get to. And it recommends that you should do what's called a 360-degree assessment. Has anybody ever done a 360-degree assessment before? Yes, one over there, all right. I'm realizing that, the 360-degree assessment basically is where you have your friends, family, work colleagues, manager, your manager's manager, your subordinates, anyone who you've worked on a project with in the past. And you have them fill out this questionnaire, which is kind of all about you and your skills, if you like. And the idea is that it's kind of an objective appraisal of you as an individual and your capabilities. And the goal of that is that you highlight gaps in your skill sets that you can start working on to improve. Now, when I did this in 2017, I told myself, no matter what happens, the whole point of this is to find out things that I don't know about myself. So no matter what happens, Kane, don't be offended by what comes back, right? Do not be offended. So the results come back. Kane is fantastic at starting ideas off, but very bad at finishing the job off. I thought, you cheeky bastards. But it was true. I was an ideas person, a fire starter, and I could never see something through. And so when I started VUX World, that was the thing that I made a promise to myself was, I want to see this through to the end no matter what, all right? And over the last 6 years, there's those same sort of blind spots that organizations have when it comes to creating and deploying effective AI solutions. And we kind of touched on some of them in the panel earlier on, but I'm going to get into a little bit more detail on some of those in just a second. So this is Jeff. Jeff is a tame lion, or a lion tamer. He's a sound bloke, and all his job is basically just to spin this wheel, and wherever this wheel lands, we'll discuss whatever's on there. But Jeff needs a little bit of encouragement, boys and girls. All right, he only starts spinning the wheel if he hears people roar. All right. So after 3, humor me, humor Jeff. After 3, we're going to spin the wheel if you can give us a roar. Okay, a lion roar. Your best impression of a lion. All right? 1, 2, 3. Brilliant. Can't believe you actually did that. I forgot to spin the wheel. Oh, no. We'll do that one more time, right? Jeff. 1, 2, 3. Rah! Oh, there you go. He did it. Well done, Jeff. I should introduce this wheel first, really. This is our wheel of analytics, and the first blind spot that a lot of organizations have comes down to the analytics data that they are able to gather within their organization and specifically through their conversational AI. We break it down into 3 main areas. One area is the business results. Nobody's doing this for fun and games, although it is quite fun and it is quite playful, but we're not doing it just for fun and games. We're doing it to try and get some business results. And those business results typically are, we want to see an increase in revenue, we want to see a decrease in cost, or we want to see an increase in our capacity or productivity, right? Now, those things we need to be able to measure in order to validate whether or not we're doing the right stuff, yeah? Then we've got the journey level, and we alluded to that a little bit during the panel this morning, which is a conversational AI chatbot on its own is only part of a solution. Any question that anybody ever asks your conversational AI is part of a broader journey that they're involved in. And so we need to be able to track the impact that the conversational AI is having in the wider context of the customer journey. And we can measure that through doing things like measuring loyalty, measuring goal completion, and a favorite of mine recently is customer effort. Measuring customer effort. And finally, we've got the interaction level. Now, that's the actual conversational component itself and making sure that we're optimizing that specific interaction to be as successful as possible. And we can measure that through looking at the adoption, through experience factors, and through making it more personalized. And so, Jeff has landed on revenue, so let's try and talk about revenue first of all. This example is an example of a dashboard that it's one of our clients. It's a debt collection company in the UK, and this is really the top level metrics that we're tracking on this chatbot. I can't show the specific numbers, but the thing that we're tracking here is the amount of revenue that the chatbot has secured for the organization, right? And it's not done by kind of putting an arbitrary number on goal completions. It's done by looking at the business system that we integrate with, figuring out how much debt the person who's having the conversation has outstanding, and if they make a payment, essentially the chatbot really what it does is it will authenticate you. It'll take your reference number, take your name, take your address, and then it will look up your debt record, and it will return back how much you owe, when you owe it by, if you've got a payment plan set up, when your next payment date is going to be, etc. And then all it does is it gives you a link to the place where you can go to solve that problem. It's either an online payment form or it's an income and expenditure form to set up a payment plan. So the chatbot, if you look at the chatbot, it kind of looks like it does its job. It understands people pretty well. It gets people authenticated. It tells people what they need to do next as a next step. But the actual goal completion, the side of the journey that really matters, is whether or not the user made a payment or whether or not they actually set up a payment plan. If they didn't make a payment or they didn't set up a payment plan, then the chatbot's done nothing, because sooner or later they're going to come back and have another conversation with the chatbot, or they're going to try and contact the company in another way. So what that's measuring is 2 days and 3 days and 7 days after the interaction with the chatbot. If someone's talking about payments or setting up payment plans, we cache that behind the scenes, and we run a task that looks back into the business system and says, this user with this session ID and this user ID had a conversation about making a payment. Did they actually make a payment or not, according to the system of record? And if they did, we'll take the amount that they paid or the amount that's been moved into a payment plan, and we'll populate that dashboard with that figure. And this chatbot in the last 6 months has generated hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of revenue for this company. The next thing, we're back to Jeff again. Anyone want to give me another roar for Jeff's spinning the wheel? 1, 2, 3. Oh, good, good. I thought you'd have lost a bit of steam there, but you still did it. All right, so the next Jeff is going to go for goals. All right, so I kind of alluded to there the ability to track goals. Now, a customer's goal isn't always a goal that they will achieve within your conversational AI chatbot, as I've already alluded to. Customers that come to this chatbot, their goal is to make a payment, set up a payment arrangement, find out why their debt's being moved to a debt collector, contact the debt collector, things like that. So we need to be able to track beyond the conversation to measure whether or not we're achieving our goals properly. And we do that through looking at a few different things. So one, we want to know how many people have we helped and they haven't escalated. And we do that by basically tagging every single element of the conversation. Every time we answer a question, we log that as a question answered. Every time we fulfill a transaction, we log that as a task completed. Every time we actually successfully validate somebody's details in the system, we log that as a task completed as well. Because everything that we do within the conversation, we're adding value to the business at every step of the way. Even if a customer doesn't complete their journey in the chatbot, even if they escalate to an agent, we're still saving the agent time because we've already authenticated them, we've already found their record in the system, and then the agent can just crack on and get on with the conversation rather than having to do that themselves. So we're looking at how many questions have we answered and how many things have been moved to arrangement specifically. The next thing that's going to impact goal completion are people that escalate to a live agent and people that abandon the conversation entirely. And when they escalate to a live agent, they're going to do so in 2 situations. One is that they've been helped in some way, shape, or form, and we want to track that separately to the ones who just escalate without being helped, because those that have been helped, we are saving the agent time on the back end when they get handed over, because they've already been authenticated, they already know how much debt they owe, they already know when their payment date is and things like that. And so we've helped the agent. And we also want to know the ones that escalated without helping the agent or the user as well. And the ones that we escalate without helping the agent or the user, or the ones that just abandon straight away, is where we should be focusing in terms of trying to improve our goal completion rates. And so to do that, we have I know Cognigy have got this kind of similar setup where you can look at a Sankey diagram. Basically, what this is showing you is every single turn in the conversation is on the left-hand side, and every single next step is on the middle part here. So being able to track the specific turns within the conversation and what the next steps are enables you to really start honing and optimizing the journey. It's very similar to optimizing a journey on web or mobile. You want to see where people start, where people drop off, and where people end up. And that's kind of what we're doing here. And we do that because we tag, as I said, every single point in the conversation. So the very first turn in the conversation is, how can I help? And we can see here that a lot of people at that turn ask next, can I just speak to someone? That's obviously going to have an impact on goal completion, because at the moment we're just going to say, yeah, fair enough, you can speak to someone, off you go. So that's the first area of an intervention that we can put in place, is how do we handle that and persuade people to give the bot a chance. The next area here is confirming your case details. So you provide us your reference number, your address, your name, all that kind of stuff. We go away and have a look in the system to try and find your record, and then we can't find your record for whatever reason. And a lot of the times that's because the threshold for attempting case lookups is exceeded. What you don't want to do is have somebody say, yes, those details are correct, go and look it up in the business system, come back and say, I'm sorry, I can't find it. Are you sure those details are correct? Yes, those details are correct, and you go and do another lookup. And then before you know it, you go round and round and round. So we have a limit. If we try that twice and we don't find it, we'll just escalate them to an agent. But the question is, why is it that we're not finding the records in the system? And this, again, is about not specifically looking at the conversation analytics. It's combining the conversational AI with the data that you have in your line of business system to figure out how you can actually make improvements. And so here, we can see that the main reason why cases are not found is because the address didn't match or the names didn't match. And on a per user by per user basis, we can see specifically which specific fields in the system were not matched. And therefore, we can then start putting in interventions there. So it's obvious now that we need to find a better way of addressing getting street addresses. And so the Cognigy X apps, I think, is a brilliant example of this, where rather than having the dialogue with the user, where you need to try and classify an address, really what you want to be doing is having a postcode lookup that pings an API, brings back a list of addresses, they select their address, and now there's no issue with mismatching addresses. And so that's the thing that we're looking at. Thing with addresses as well, sometimes people have moved house, so there's a bit of conversation to be created there, which is around trying to figure out whether you have moved house and whether this is an old address and things like that. But the point of this is that unless you are able to track on a turn-by-turn basis the specifics of what's happening in the conversation, you can't really optimize it. Otherwise, you're just doing it based on gut feel. Last one for Jeff. One last roar. 1, 2, 3. Oh, look at that. The energy is amazing. I thought you'd have been all carved out by now and just like lying about ready to go to sleep. Finally, experience. You can measure experience in lots and lots of different ways, and lots of factors go into measuring the experience. There's a lot of things on that journey level, like effort specifically, which is a good measure of experience. We want to be reducing customer effort as much as we can. And the guys at Cognigy, Sebastian and Phil, both spoke about this yesterday, actually, which is around to create more human-like AI assistants. Why do we want to create human-like AI assistants? Well, the fundamental reason is that we want to make a conversational interface as easy to use as possible. That's all it is. When someone makes a phone call, we kind of think of it as a conversation. We think of it as some crazy new thing, but really it's an interface to technology. It's an interface to computing. So we want to make that interface as easy as we can. And so in order to do that, part of, again, what was kind of covered yesterday is we want to make sure that we understand everything that is said by customers. And again, if you can drill down at a turn-by-turn level to see what was said, what was classified, what did the LLM classify correctly, what did the NLU classify correctly, and what was left over, you can then see at a turn-by-turn level how do we optimize to improve the experience for people. And so straight away you can see at the how can I help turn, 41% of all of the things that we can't classify in the whole conversation, 41% of them happen at the first turn of the conversation. And being able to drill down into that to see the specific things that weren't classified means that you've then got the ammunition to start training your models a bit more effectively. Rather than looking at, which a lot of platforms do, they'll just show you everything that hasn't been classified. And then you're kind of left thinking, well, what's the context of this conversation? I don't understand. You have to be able to drill down at a turn level to do this kind of stuff. And so most organizations that begin using conversational AI to some degree, they start with this kind of emergent strategy. It's an area of the business that has a problem, like the contact center. We'll put a solution in place for the contact center. We'll try and prove some value there. And so all the things I've demonstrated, if you have that kind of emergent approach, it's a grassroots-led initiative, you can implement a lot of this kind of stuff using that, and you can prove the value. You can do all of that kind of tagging within your platform, within the Cognigy platform, all that kind of stuff. Sooner rather than later, as we've heard from Alliance, we've heard from IKEA, Toyota, what they all have in common, Lufthansa, what they all have in common is that at some point in time, they managed to break out of that kind of grassroots-led movement into a more purposeful business strategy. It's not just a contact center solution. For IKEA, for Lidl, it's headsets on the shop floor. It's conversational AI in the factories, right? What we're doing here really is the capabilities that we have is an ambient computing capability that can be used to solve any problem anywhere. And you're not really going to get into those opportunities until you can convince the business leadership. We heard from Ergo earlier on about the importance of convincing and getting on board your senior stakeholders, because that's what's going to unlock the doors to the opportunities and the revenue that you need to do that. And so you can use those analytics, as I've just explained, to really prove in no uncertain terms the specific value that this thing is generating, that then opens that conversation to how do we do this more frequently. I thought that this next slide was going to be, I wouldn't use the word revolutionary, but it was going to be new stuff, right? In the UK, what I've learned over the last few days is that Germany, as far as their approach, the German companies, as far as their approach to implementing conversational AI, is ahead of the UK, because every case study we've seen on this stage so far, it's been very pragmatic, and it hasn't been, look, AI is fantastic, we're going to automate the shit out of absolutely everything. It's been how can we figure out what journeys we have that work really, really well, and use those and get people into those journeys, and then how do we take what's left and make sense of that using AI and make it more effective for people. And so one of the ways in which you can do that is take all of your data from across all of your channels. Every single channel that a business has, wherever the customer meets the business, every single channel that you have, I'll challenge you to find one that isn't, is conversational. Your website, you've got live chat, you've got search, you've got natural language inputs on there. Same thing with your mobile app. You've got customer reviews on all kinds of websites. You've got search traffic. You have emails. You've got your call center. Maybe you're using messaging or social media. Every single channel has natural language unstructured data. And so the thing to do, and this is what DHL is doing in Canada in partnership with Google, is ingest all of that data, right? Use AI to do what's called topic modeling or clustering, where you essentially profile your customer needs across all of your channels. And there's lots of tools that do this. Human First can do this. Sentisum can do this. Dashbot can now do this. Google have tools. Amazon have tools. It would be very surprising to me to learn that Cognigy either doesn't or doesn't have this on its roadmap, because I think it absolutely will do, which gives you the ability to take all that data, figure out exactly what your customers need across all of your touch points, and then you can start saying, right, for this one need, that's better served on the web, because the user needs to be authenticated. We know that our website traffic is high. We know that journey is really, really successful. Another use case might be that this is better off being handled by a human. This is what we want our humans for. It's a fraud reporting use case, or it's a bereavement or something like that. We really want a high-touch service here, and so we really want people to be involved in this one. Another one might be better off being done in the app or over messaging, because it's going to be useful to have them send a picture or something like that. And so really the idea is that you figure out what the ideal way of solving each of those needs are, and then you assess whether or not you have those solutions already in place. And then the job of the AI becomes being present on every single one of those channels. Every channel I've mentioned so far, you can have an AI agent present on those channels. And the first job of the AI, I think Lufthansa, I think they might still be in the room today, over here, they mentioned that in the very first keynote of the sessions was, the first port of call is classifying and recognizing the customer need and then getting them to the most appropriate channel. I mentioned in the panel earlier on the book by Matt Dixon, The Effortless Experience. I would certainly encourage everybody to go and read that because the data in there proves that people will switch channel if you can guarantee that they'll get their need resolved. So the role of the AI in future for organizations that are starting to scale and take this seriously and mature is that you have your AI across all of your channels, and the first thing that it's there to do, if you can answer questions, fine, but you need to make sure and understand that your questions are part of a broader journey. And so you need to be able to anticipate how the customer should be solving that journey. Use that intent to deflect, as I call it, which is figuring out what their needs are, get them to the right kind of channel. If there is a gap or if it makes sense to do so, then yes, automate that in the channel itself, if it's simple enough, if it's going to make the journey easier and better. Failing that, you want to inform the agent when you do the handover, all right? So you want to make sure that you're passing together the context of the conversation, you're passing over the situation that the customer's in to then strip down that handle time. And then after that, if you can't do any of that stuff, you at least want to get them to the right place. And then when they reach your agent, yes, it's nice to have the agent assist tooling, but my argument here is that you're better off going to the customer-facing channels first, optimizing and doing as best as you can to really increase your self-service adoption rates on your other channels, then increasing your self-service rates in the AI channel itself, and then focus on the agent after that. Because what ends up happening is, if you can automate the low-hanging fruit, if you can automate and deliver value on the front end, what ends up passing to the agent ends up being actually quite complex stuff. Landry's hotels and casinos in America did this exact thing. They had all their questions answered in their IVR. And it turns out what was reaching their agents was all of the hard stuff. The average handle times went through the roof because it was all complex stuff. Now you try and build an agent assist model for the most long tail, complex conversations that you're dealing with, and you'll find yourself having a very hard challenge to deal with. If you are going to do agent assist, I would recommend having the same kind of approach, focusing on getting those main journeys kind of automated and streamlined. But if you're going to do that, you may as well put it in front of your customers because that's where you're going to get further value from it. I know I'm on time now, so I'll skip on. The last thing, this is Percy, and this is a representation of what we've been talking about. Again, Rita mentioned it in the panel this morning, which is that what I see a lot of across the globe, really, is conversational interfaces being put on top of really rubbish, outdated business processes. And in the UK, I don't know if you have the same terminology in Germany, but in the UK, we call that slapping lipstick on a pig. Right? Polishing a turd, that's another one. Right? You've got a really broken, terrible business process, and you think that it's going to be made far better because ChatGPT now exists. The reality is that's not the case. And so what we recommend that businesses do is you take a kind of service design-led approach to your automation strategy. You utilize things like journey mapping, and you kind of map out the existing process as it currently is. You use things like Lean Six Sigma to identify where the waste in the process is, and how can you strip out the waste to streamline the process and deliver more value quicker to the user. And if you can do that, you'll, one, be able to create the absolute idyllic solution for your user. You might not be able to achieve that straight away, but you will definitely identify the barriers and challenges and things that you need to do in order to get there, and that will then start to inform your transformation roadmap as well. And so stop really thinking, I would say, about how do we make this conversational? Start thinking about how do we fix the user journey? How do we make effective, streamlined journeys? And then what's the role of conversational AI within that? And I'm actually surprised and delighted to hear the Lidls and the Lufthansas and the Alliances of the world saying that exact stuff today. I kind of thought that they might have pinched my slides, but I don't think so. Anyway, in summary, 1, use advanced analytics to improve performance and track the actual value that your solutions are providing. Listen to all of your conversations across all of your channels and map that to the appropriate self-service solutions first and foremost. Then you can use AI to plug the gaps and deliver automation solutions where relevant, where it's going to improve the journey. And that's half the problem. People try and automate stuff that really isn't best placed to be done in a conversational interface. And then redesign the whole journey and not just the interaction. If you can't redesign the full journey, at least you will find the challenges and the things that you need to work on really to enable that broader business transformation. And that's it. Number 6, follow me on LinkedIn, Kane Sims. Number 7, listen to the VUX World podcast. And number 8, if you are a practitioner in this space and you're interested in keeping up to speed on what the best practice is for designing and implementing conversational interfaces, then get yourself to Unparsed. It's a conference in London in June where we are bringing the practitioner community together to share best practice and further our collective knowledge and experiences in terms of how to build and deliver effective conversational interfaces. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm around for the rest of the day, so happy to chat afterwards.